Welcome back to Folk Tales with Shafi, where every story holds a lesson. Today, we journey to the bustling heart of Nairobi, a city of roaring matatus and towering buildings. Here lived a man named Mr. Muli. He was tall, dark, and his shiny shoes clicked loudly on the pavement, announcing his arrival. He wore a perfectly pressed coat and smelled of expensive perfume. But it wasn't his appearance that people remembered. It was his towering, unshakable pride. Mr. Muli owned an entire block of houses in Eastleigh. He grandly called it Golden Court, though there was nothing golden about it. The walls were cracked, the paint was peeling, and the water supply was a weekly lottery. Yet, people queued to rent his properties, because affordable housing in Nairobi was as rare as a quiet street. His tenants lived in constant fear. Mr. Muli had a temper as short as a fuse. If you were even a single day late with the rent, he'd be at your door at the crack of dawn, banging and shouting for the whole world to hear. "Do you think I'm running a charity?" he'd bellow, waving his big bunch of keys like a weapon. On the first floor lived Amina, a kind tailor with 2 sweet children. She always greeted him with a polite "Good morning, sir," but he'd never smile back. His only response was a gruff, "Rent first, stories later." Next door was Otieno, a strong but quiet mechanic from Gikamba who avoided trouble at all costs. Even he would bow his head whenever the landlord stormed by. But among the sea of fearful faces, one man stood unbowed. His name was Kamau. He was young, bold, and spoke the truth with the heat of a fire. One afternoon, Muli was screaming at Amina for a small delay in her payment. Kamau stepped out of his flat, his presence immediately silencing the courtyard. "Sir," he said, his voice calm but firm, "shouting doesn't make you great. Kindness does." A deafening silence fell over Golden Court. You could have heard a pin drop. Mr. Muli's eyes blazed like hot coals. He turned slowly towards Kamau. "What did you say?" he growled. Kamau stood his ground, tall and unwavering. "You heard me." From that moment on, a silent war was declared. It was a battle, not of fists, but of Eastleigh landlord's pride against the tenant's principles. Muli began to make Kamau's life a living nightmare. He hiked his rent without notice, frequently cut off his water supply, and even instructed the watchman to spy on him, hoping to find a reason to evict him. But Kamau was resolute. He didn't pack his bags. Instead, he told his neighbors, "Let's see how long pride can fight truth." As the sun set, the tenants would gather in the small courtyard, their voices low whispers in the gathering dark. "He thinks he is a god," one would say. "He forgets that even kings fall," another would add. "But who will be brave enough to stop him?" they'd ask, their eyes drifting towards Kamau's window. Soon, strange rumors began to circulate through Golden Court. Some tenants claimed the building was cursed, whispering about eerie footsteps on the roof at midnight. Others swore they saw Mr. Muli pacing his balcony, arguing furiously with someone who wasn't there. When these whispers reached Muli, he just laughed. "You people are poor and foolish," he sneered. "Nothing can touch me." But then, things started happening that even he couldn't explain. The rent money he meticulously collected would vanish from his locked drawer. The very keys he brandished like a scepter would disappear, only to reappear in the strangest places inside a shoe, or dangling from a light fixture. One morning, he woke to find every tenant's door wide open, yet no one had lost their keys. He stormed through the corridors, accusing everyone of a grand conspiracy, but they just looked back at him with tired, weary eyes. It was Amina who spoke softly. "Maybe it's not us you should be angry with, sir. Maybe it's your own heart." That night, a powerful storm rolled over Nairobi. Thunder rattled the window panes. Muli drifted into a troubled sleep and dreamed he was standing in the courtyard, shouting at his tenants as usual. But when they turned to face him, they had no faces. They were just empty, hollow shadows staring back at him. He woke up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding against his ribs. The days bled into weeks. Muli's immense pride began to show cracks, but he desperately tried to patch them over with his booming voice and aggressive posture. He started drinking heavily at night, alone in his room, muttering to himself, "They will respect me. They must." But the image of Kamau's calm, defiant face haunted his waking hours. Every time he passed him in the hallway, Kamau would offer a kind greeting, a simple act that infuriated Muli more than any insult. One afternoon, an unmarked letter appeared under his door. It bore no name, only a single, chilling sentence. "What you built with pride will fall in pride." He laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh, and tore the paper to shreds. But a seed of deep, unfamiliar fear had been planted in his gut. That very night, the heavens opened up, and a torrential rain began to fall. The old, neglected roof of Golden Court finally gave way. Water started leaking everywhere. In a cruel twist of irony, the worst leak was directly above Muli's own bed. He screamed for the caretaker, who simply replied with a shrug, "Sir, I think even the roof is tired of your shouting." Muli's fury finally dissolved into a heavy, suffocating silence. He started seeing shadows flitting in the staircases, taking the shape of tenants he had unfairly evicted years ago. Sleep offered no escape. His dreams were now vivid nightmares. In every one, he would stand before a mirror. But instead of his own reflection, he saw Kamau's calm face staring back at him. Then, one morning, the entire building was jolted awake by a terrifying scream. It came from the landlord's apartment. His door was wide open. The room was in complete disarray, and scrawled across the walls in white chalk were the words, "Pride burns faster than fire." The police were called. They conducted a thorough search, but found no signs of a break-in. No thief, no intruder. All they found was Mr. Muli, sitting on the floor amidst the chaos, shaking uncontrollably and whispering, "Who wrote it? Who?" But no one had an answer. Or perhaps they all knew the answer. The truth had finally written itself on the walls. From that day forward, a profound change swept through Golden Court. The tenants, no longer divided by fear, found a new sense of unity. They pooled their money and skills to repair the leaking roof. They started sharing meals and helping each other when the water ran out. A community was born from the ashes of tyranny. But Mr. Muli remained locked in his room, a prisoner of his own making. He refused to come out. Sometimes Kamau would gently knock on his door. "Sir," he would say kindly, "it's never too late to be human." But the door remained shut. There was only silence until one morning the door creaked open, and what the tenants saw inside was something none of them would ever forget. And that, my friends, is where we'll leave the story for today. What do you think they saw? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the thrilling conclusion to The Arrogant Landlord. Thank you for watching Folk Tales with Shafi, and we'll see you in the next story.